Okay, so this man, back in the days,
As a watch commander, you are a lieutenant of police,
Yes,
and you are responsible for sergeants of police,
that's correct.
and you review and evaluate their performance. Is that correct?
Yes,
And is one of the ways that you review and evaluate their performance their submission of sergeant's logs?
it's part of that evaluation process.
That's what I asked. Part of.
Yeah.
And part of that is your evaluation of them in the field, correct?
Yes,
And sergeants evaluate patrol officers, is that correct?
yes,
And they do that based in part upon their daily logs.
yes.
And prior to being a lieutenant of police, what was your position with the Los Angeles Police Department, sir?
I was a detective for about 12 or 13 years prior to becoming a lieutenant.
And what was your position prior to being a detective?
A patrol officer.
A patrol officer. And as a lieutenant of police, are you familiar with the reports that are used by the Los Angeles Police Department?
Yes,
And are you familiar with a sergeant's log,
yes,
or a sergeant's daily report, as it is referred to?
yes.
And what is the purpose of that report, sir?
It has numerous purposes. It is essentially used to report activities of a sergeant, observations of a sergeant, commendable performance, deficient performance of his subordinates. It has several uses.
All right, sir, is one of those uses the reporting of a crime or the investigation of a crime?
It's not primarily used to report crimes, no.
Lieutenant, have you ever seen a sergeant's log used to report a crime?
Yeah, I have seen them used to include information about a crime, but it is not intended or used to report crimes.
What is its purpose, sir?
It's basically an administrative report, as opposed to reports that are used to report criminal activity by people outside the department.
All right, sir, and where does that report, what is the distribution of that report?
The log,
Yes,
the
sir.
daily report, when it's completed, it's given to me. I review it, and then it is passed along to the commanding officer of the involved division, and subsequently filed in the division.
All right, so it is an internal report that is kept in-house.
Yes.
All right. I have no further, Your Honor.
All right, people have any questions?
Yes, Your Honor, however.
Oh. May I reopen, Your Honor?
Sure.
Do reports that relate to the commission of a crime or the investigation of a crime have a distinct number on them?
Yes.
And what is that number referred to commonly?
A DR number.
And do all of those reports have a place for the name of a victim?
All crime reports do, yes.
And follow-up reports?
Yes.
And arrest reports?
Yes.
And those numbers are all kept so that the reports can be cross-referenced?
I don't understand, I'm sorry.
If you have a stolen vehicle report and you have a arrest report, are those reports cross-referenced by what you refer to as a DR number?
Yes, if they relate to the same event, they have the same DR number.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Yockelson?
Very quickly. Sir, prior to your assignment to Foothill on or about March 3rd, 1991, where were you assigned?
Just prior to that, I was assigned as the officer in charge of an auto theft task force it was in Van Nuys division, but it was responsible for the entire valley.
You were a detective.
Yes.
And as a detective, do you deal with sergeant daily reports?
Objection relevance.
Overruled.
Occasionally I have, but it is not routine.
And so then, basically, the experience you've had with sergeant daily reports has been in the years since you became a lieutenant, is that correct?
Primarily.
And with respect to sergeant daily reports, you say they're not used to report crimes. What do you mean by report?
There is a class of reports specifically designed to memorialize a crime when it occurs, crime reports, and you can talk about the different form numbers, but they're all crime reports. They report violations of the penal code. And so that's what I'm talking about, reports specifically intended to memorialize violations of the penal code.
In your experience with sergeants' daily reports, have you seen examples of crimes being discussed or the investigation of crimes being discussed in these reports?
Yes.
And in fact, that is what is present in Exhibit 25, the Sergeant's Daily Report of Sergeant Kuhn. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Objection calls for conclusion.
Overruled.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything else?
Sir, does a sergeant's report have any kind of a number so it can be retrieved later?
No.
And they are kept in a category by sergeant's name, is that correct?
Yes.
In a folder under his name, correct?
That's correct.
You say as in the past you have seen reports such as this sergeant's daily report utilized in criminal investigations, is that right?
They have been involved in criminal investigations that I have handled.
In what way?
I have seen them used to document activities that the sergeant may have engaged in as a preliminary unit at the scene of a crime that I later investigated, to discuss officers' activities at the scene of an investigation or a crime. General things like that. Not specifically to talk about each point of the crime itself, but used to discuss generally things involved in investigations.
Did these reports ever get into the flow of reports that were